welcome to today's episode. I'm your hostess, Julia Lundstrom, and the owner and founder of Simple Smart Science. Today, we have a very exciting guest for you. I had a conversation with him the other day that expanded my mind tenfold. It's with Dr. Roy Martina. He is a world-renowned holistic medical doctor specializing in health coaching and personal development with more than 30 years experience working with incurable cases, chronically ill people. And he's researched the best way to help people cure themselves. He's a trainer, a speaker, a developer of a range of comprehensive therapies, and a best-selling author with more than 40 self-help books, CDs, and DVDs, including his own international best-selling book, Emotional Balance, The Path to Inner Peace and Healing. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Roy Martina. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm so excited after I talked to you. A little bit of what we talked about reminded me of a sci-fi film, which of course, we'll get into a little bit later. But I know that you work with people using a lot of visualizations, and that's a lot about what we talked about. And I'll tell you, I've told no less than 10 people about the visualizations that you talked to me about. It's really, I keep trying to talk myself out of it. It was so mind expanding. So I can't wait to jump into that. But let's talk a little bit about your experience with visualizations, because I know you've worked with a lot of chronically ill patients with visualizations and how it's really helped them with the placebo effect, which we know can be very, very powerful. So can you explain a little bit more about how that pertains to overall health and, of course, longevity, which is the topic of our summit here this week?
First thing, visualization, many people do not understand the power of it. Some people even think it's something, like airy-fairy or woo-woo, whatever it is. But it's one of the most powerful and simplest tools that we have available to all of us for everything we want. And I started with visualization very young, at the age of 6, when I started with martial arts. And I had this great teacher, we called him Sensei, and he taught me the first principles of visualization, how to visualize winning a competition. And later on, what happened was that in my medical career, at some point, because I didn't really learn about visualizations in the medical sense, much later I discovered some people were doing it. But what I discovered is that the same principles that applied for martial arts could also apply for healing. And the mind works in a very great way. We have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The subconscious mind actually is 90% of what governs our life. Most people don't even understand it or know that. We think that consciously is the most powerful part. But the way we react to life is totally programmed on the subconscious level. And the subconscious mind has received images from the moment we're born until today. But the first, I would say, 7 years, we have no protection. We don't have a critical mind. Everything comes in at full value. So we still hold on to these old images as being real and being the reality that we live in. So if we bring it to disease, is when we visualize ourselves being healthy. Let's say someone has cancer and they see themselves 1 year later. We fixate them on a date. For example, their birthday, maybe next year they're turning 45, and we then have them focus on the birthday and imagine how they would want to be on their birthday and celebrating that they've been healed and cured in a miraculous way. They don't even understand the how that they were cured, but they only are visualizing the fact that they're cured. And what happens is that these images influence the subconscious mind, but mainly the autonomous nervous system and the DNA. And we'll talk about DNA a little bit later, but we're creating a blueprint for the nervous system and the DNA to follow. And when we do that strong enough, especially when we link happy feelings to it, and we make it colorful. So let's say we make that birthday very special. We see all our friends coming there. You already know which music is going to play. Whatever it is, the more details you put into the visualization, the more effect it has on your autonomous nervous system and also on your DNA. And I've seen miracles happen over and over and over again.
Tell me about some of those. I'd love to hear a story about.
Okay, one is a very interesting one is someone who came to me during a workshop. He was brought by a student and he was given up. He had only 3 months to live. He looked very, very bad. He had cancer, spread throughout the bones, the liver, everything. He was yellow and he had given up on life because when the doctors tell you it's over, what are you going to do? It's over.
Yeah.
So what happens technically when you get this kind of verdict, you're visualizing already that you're going to die. So you are actually helping to basically what the doctor is saying. So, and I gave him a CD, and in the CD, it is where he's only focusing on his immune system and to see the immune cells really destroying the cancer cells. And he was listening to this CD and visualization for over 6 hours a day. That he was dying anyway. He was tired. And later on, he told me he had nothing to do. And he kind of liked my voice. So he was listening all day. And I meet him 2 years later. I totally had forgotten about him. And he came again to a workshop, and there was a different man. He had, of course, when I met him, he had no hair because of the chemo. Now he had a full blonde hair. He was in his 50s and looking vital, radiant. And the first thing he said to me, Dr. Roy, I know your voice better than my wife's voice. Okay. And this was a miracle. This was impossible, according to medicine, to cure. And the main thing was visualization and, of course, some nutrition and that kind of stuff. And one thing that's very interesting about visualization is that even though the conscious mind may know that something is not true, but if you bombard the subconscious mind with the images, the subconscious will start seeing that as a reality, as being the life you're leading. One other example is a brother of mine who had a kidney transplant. And after kidney transplant, you get all these medicine to stop the rejection process of the new kidney. And this is very strong medicine that makes you very sick and people feel very bad and all of that. And I told them, you have to just visualize that these colorful pills are vitamin pills and they're helping you to feel better and you have more energy. And even when you awake, you have this infusion in your veins. Just tell yourself these are vitamins. And I said, the nurses will tell you they're not vitamins, just pretend you're stupid. Okay? So when they bring all these pills, like 15 pills, you always say, thank you for my vitamins. They're so good for me. They're yummy. And he is the fastest healing patients in kidney transplant ever. That was number one. 0 immune reaction. What he didn't know, that he was on a clinical trial, what they call a double-blind study for a new anti-rejection medicine, and he was the only one that reacted positive to this medicine. So that was unbelievable. And the strange thing was that he knew consciously that those things were not vitamins, but the fact that he kept telling himself and visualizing the effects on his body just changed everything. It was measurable and so on. And another quick example is on weight loss. So if we visualize that our stomach is shrinking and we can no longer eat the amount of food we were eating before, and if you do that every evening before you go to bed and so on, after a while you can never again eat the same amount of food you were eating before. And after just a couple of bites, you will feel full, satisfied, not hungry anymore. And you lose weight really graciously, effortlessly. So it's being used in so many different ways. Used, of course, in sports with athletes, for example, golf. playing golf is very known that they visualize where the ball goes and all of that. So visualization now for longevity, going back to the first 7 years, where we bombarded with images, for example, our grandparents were not very, let's say, energetic and vital when they're 80. Maybe one of them was walking with crutches and they didn't do exercise. They were sitting all the time. And when you're young and you're getting these impressions, your subconscious believes that's the way you get old. And that becomes the blueprint for aging. And even research has shown that if someone dies that is in your inner circle, in a certain way, the chances that you're dying in the exact certain way is statistically much higher than it should be. So let's say if someone dies of a heart attack when you're 6, let's say an uncle, your chance of dying of a heart attack increases more than 3 times compared to the general population. So what we receive is also having an effect on later in life, the way we age, how old we become. So we can change that by starting to visualize how we age, how we celebrate our 80th birthday or 100th birthday. So for me, my visualization of my 100th birthday is a funny one. So I have this cake with 100 candles on it. And I'm, of course, very vital, very big lungs, of course. And I blow out this cake. And the fumes go up and the fire alarm goes off, and and everybody's laughing, and we're having fun, and I'm dancing till 4 a.m. in the morning, having fun. That's my visualization. And in the morning of my 100th birthday, I start the morning by cycling for 2 hours. So that's in my vision, and I've done this over and over. It just takes a few minutes. Maybe 2 minutes before you go to sleep, you just visualize this, how you want to age. And you do that by choosing certain birthdays where you see yourself celebrating. So on my 100th birthday, the mayor of the little village comes and to congratulate me that I made it to 100. Everybody's telling me that it's impossible that I'm 100 and I'm looking so good. Tim barely gives me 60 years of, that kind of stuff. You put that in visualization and you create a blueprint for aging, and it will be definitely different.
So now does that go back to, you were talking about how from 7 to 10, you get these blueprints in your mind. Now when you're 7 to 10, you don't really have any control over those images that are coming in. Is that one of your techniques for replacing those images, for
Yes,
getting over those that are so cemented into our DNA?
Right. So there are actually 2 kinds of images that are bad for us. So any example of someone suffering or whatever, to where, let's say if you have a mother with migraine and she feels like a victim, that will also have an impact on you. So some of these images may have very strong emotions. Some are just observations. There are no emotions to it. The ones with the strong emotions are the ones we need to, put something stronger on top of that. So when we add specific happy feelings, in NLP they call this anchoring. So my anchor to my 100th birthday is happy. It is great. It's fun. Most people subconsciously have a negative anchor with being old. So if we ask them, what do you think about being 100? Most people just feel fragile. They feel bad. They think they might break their hips. So we have all these negative ideas. And when we start bombarding ourselves with new images, another thing that I've done and I recommend to people to do is to collect images of people who age graciously. So we have, let's say, pictures of this lady of 80 years old. She's totally flexible. Other people start running at their 60s, and at 80s, they're running marathons. So you collect around you new images of how you want to age. And I even strongly recommend, for example, to make a vision board, to create a collage of all the examples and models for you when you're going to be aging. And this way you overcome any old programming and replace it with new possibilities that you didn't have before.
It's a great way to use a vision board. Most people use it, to put up their dream house or their dream car. But isn't it so much better to put up your dream being and who you want to be and who you want to be when you're that old? I know my dad actually just left yesterday. He's 85 and has always been such a role model. Everybody that sees him cannot believe that he's 85. He just
Right.
went overseas at 85 years old on his own, rented a car, was driving all around by himself. He's my model of who I want to be when I grow up. So I'm glad I have that blueprint.
Yes, absolutely.
It's great to have it. I know, for instance, my husband's grandmother, who's actually 83, younger than my father, and she's already in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, and it's really sad. So I know with so many people have these diseases in their families that it's so important not to feel like that's your path, because so many doctors tell us it's in your genes, you're going to get it, this probability of getting it because it's in your family. So for you, when people come to you saying that, what is it that you tell them? Are these the tools and techniques that you go through with them?
Right. Yeah. First, having these exams like your father is great, and then the opposite is then also something to look at, because dementia will become one of the greatest problems of our lifetime. And the prediction is that within the next 15 to 20 years, 50% above 60 will have dementia. That's a lot. And that means that the other 50% is taking care of the other 50%. So it's terrible what the statistics look like. So that's one side of the story. Going back to your question, one of the missing links I found was the visualization, because yes, there's things like nutrition, exercise, and all of those things. So when I visualize in the future that I'm exercising, guess what? All of a sudden, my need to start exercising becomes stronger. It's not that you're going to wait till you're 100 to begin exercising. The subconscious mind already start creating the desire to exercise, the desire to eat healthy, the desire to lower your stress, and the desire to reduce pollution all around. So you can program. One time I made a mistake, and that was for not a mistake. It was for my 80th birthday. At that time, I was very fanatic in running. So I decided on my 80th birthday, I'm going to run a marathon. So I started visualizing that. And then I went fanatic on running. So I started running so much that I had got problems with my knees. So I said, okay, I need to change the visualization. That's why now it's cycling, not running, because it has an effect on you. It will create a desire in you. I would run against my own advice. Did you think so? So I had to change the visualization in order for me to get off the addiction of running. That's how powerful it is. And of course, I give other advices like things on nutrition, antioxidants, and all those things, because with aging, we have other problems we're dealing with. The longer you live, the bigger the chance on having arteriosclerosis, so the calcification of your circulation. And the second thing is the bigger the chance you will have cancer. And so most people are lucky, they die of a heart attack. So if you 50% of people get a heart attack, die right away. So they're done, right? But if you survive the heart attack, like my father-in-law survived this heart attack, and then 2 years later they discover he has prostate cancer. So it's another ordeal. So we really need to work on keeping our arteries clean and healthy, and we need to boost our immune system, and there are many ways we can do that. But the most important way is to do it with your mind, to again visualize your arteries being elastic, supple, flexible, and the immune system super strong. And that is, in my belief, more powerful than vitamins, antioxidants, and all the other stuff. Even those are important, but the mind is more stronger than anything else that we can throw it. And I see a lot of people and a lot of my friends, gobbling all these vitamins and antioxidants, which is great, but they're not doing the other work. And that means that a lot of people still, despite having a great lifestyle, despite taking all these, vitamins, herbs, they still may end up with cancer or with arteriosclerosis. So it's a combination of everything. We cannot isolate just nutrition and leave the mind out. We need to combine the two.
I totally agree. So I want to dive into kind of the sci-fi aspect of what we talked about the other day, because it's so exciting. You have worked with a new visualization that created, and it's using quantum science to work in the alternative universe, you say, on parallel timelines. So I was so excited to hear about this, and I can't wait for you to share what this is about and how it works with longevity.
Absolutely. This I added to my repertoire 2 years ago. And it's a kind of a strange story, because I met this billionaire while I was filming a documentary where I was on a panel, and it was about the laws of success, or the laws of creation, the laws of attraction. And he was saying things that for me was new at the time, because he is not a spiritual person like we know spiritual people. He called himself a quantum scientist, and he has used a visualization I'm going to explain now to become a billionaire. He was fired from his job in 2008, and 5 years later, without a product, without big money or anything, he's a billionaire. How does this happen? And he told me the story that he visualized this through another technique. And the theory is that we're living in a timeline, but there are parallel timelines happening at the same time. And most people know about that time is not linear outside of a three-dimensional space, believe that past lives, future lives, and current lives are all happening at the same time, which has also been proven by a hypnotist called Dolores Cannon, where she interviewed Nostradamus in real time by having someone travel back to the parallel time where he was. But I'll get back to that a little later. Close your mind.
Sounds a bit controversial, actually. But
right. It's totally crazy, because if you go into the quantum side, we don't have a linear timeline. But the more interesting part of it is that we have parallel lifetimes where other versions of ourselves are living similar lives, but a little bit different based on the choices that we made. For example, maybe when I was getting the opportunity to go study to become a doctor or a pilot. So I was offered a scholarship for either one of them, and I love flying. And actually, I would have chosen a pilot, was it not that doctor sound a little bit better. Okay, so I became a doctor. But a parallel me is a pilot. Okay, then when I became a doctor, I was crazy about surgery. But then because of a car accident, I could not become a surgeon, but the parallel me is a surgeon and living a life of a surgeon. So in one life, I'm married to one person, in another life, I'm married to another person, all depending on the choices that we make. So when we look into the future, and that's what the billionaire did, he said, I want to connect to a parallel timeline where I am a billionaire. And so every morning he start to imagine being the billionaire. And the reason it's different than visualization is that normal visualization is you create the ingredients of the visualization. So I decide I want to have this birthday cake and, the whole story. With this technique, which is called timeline jumping, you are not visualizing anything, but you're imagining you're jumping into that timeline and observe what's happening in the other timeline. So you can be totally surprised by what's happening there. So, for example, what happened to me when I started using his technique 2 years ago, and I said, well, if he can become a billionaire that easy, why shouldn't I be a billionaire? Right? So I started doing this timeline jumping, and I found this timeline where I was a billionaire. And in that timeline, I had no hair. And, I'm not bald by nature. I have my hair everywhere. And so I decided, well, if he is bald and he's a billionaire, that's the simplest thing to do. Let me start with shaving my hair. Everybody asked me why.
That's commitment. I will say that is commitment.
So, well, I think it's good, but I didn't want to speak about it. But the real thing was because of that. And then things start unfolding to the point now that this billionaire friend has decided that he's going to make me a partner in a multi-billion-dollar business. So technically, it's possible. But the same thing is for longevity, is that if you say, well, there is a timeline where I am living up to 100 and whatever, 130, 120, and I'm still healthy, and you start jumping to that timeline and then start learning from your parallel self how your parallel self thinks different and is doing different, and you start adapting to the same ideas, experiences, feelings. So, for example, my parallel self is a Zen master. So I'm training myself to become totally Zen in everything that happens, to breathe, to stay in my power, to no longer allow emotional triggers to put me into stress. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. And the same thing for longevity. What I saw in the future, that my parallel self was doing a lot of yoga and Tai Chi. I hate yoga. I hate Tai Chi, but I decided, well, I'm going to do it. If that's going to make me live, 40 more years, then I should start now. So I do every morning, I do my yoga exercises, and I just had a friend over who's a Tai Chi master. He started teaching me some forms. So we are learning from this parallel time and this parallel self, things we should change in our life right now. And by doing that every day, you spend maybe 15 minutes just imagining you are in this parallel timeline. You will get so much new information. And what happens over time, that synchronicity starts to happen more and more and more. And all of a sudden, you discover that you're in this parallel timeline because things have changed. And that's already happening in my life in ways that I cannot even fathom yet how that's possible. How is it possible that someone who's a billionaire wants to become partner with me while I don't have any product to sell or whatever? And later on the product comes, but that was not first. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. And so the timeline is already shifting. Also, my health is getting better in the sense that since I started doing yoga, my back is feeling much better. I feel more flexible. It helps me also to be more calm, and so on and so on. So we can learn. And some people will not believe these things because they think it's fantasy. But the more you do it, I challenge everybody to try it and to see what happens, especially for longevity, especially for health. So what you want to do is to decide there's a timeline where I'm healthy, even past 100, I'm vital, I am happy, I'm having the time of my life. And instead of visualizing it, go there and see how it is and bring that back. And the more you do it, the more these two timelines will become one, and you start changing the way you behave, the way your body feels. It's different, but very similar to the other one.
And science is just beginning to show that, right? Quantum science is all about how our energy can change.
Absolutely.
Can change physical items or objects, can change what happens in the future. So they're just getting studies on this, but I've read a few of them, and they are remarkable on what our physical energy can do and project out there. So we absolutely can create our futures. And I think
one famous doctor, professor is Bruce Lipton, and he has written a book about the new science of epigenetics. And in epigenetics, we used to believe that you even spoke about, it's in your genes and stuff like that. That's the old belief, is that your DNA is fixed. If you received a bad hand, that's it. Deal with it. But what Bruce Lipton has proven in laboratory is that the DNA is influenced by the environment. So we actually, depending on the environment, we can switch certain parts of DNA on or off. So when we have in our subconscious mind visions of the future where we're aging in a bad way, we are switching off into DNA all the chromosomes that will help with healthy aging. By visualizing a new future, we are switching off the ones for bad aging and we're switching on to ones for good aging. So science is proving now with epigenetics that visualization and other techniques do work on influencing the DNA. So, and that's the new science of epigenetics. It's just new means maybe just 10 or 15 years old, and it's still developing. We're still discovering more and more. So we can influence our DNA. We can change things that are not good for us. For example, if there's cancer in your family, you can actually deactivate the chromosomes that will promote cancer and activate those that will fight cancer. And just by using our mind, we can do that. I think that's going to be the science of the future, that we can influence the DNA by certain sounds, by certain vibrations, by certain visualizations, and maybe even by certain medicine or stuff in the future.
Yeah, I think I know I've read a lot of science about turning genes on and off and DNA sequences on and off. And I actually think that what they're going to discover is really what you're talking about, which is the visualization. We can physically change it with our minds.
Absolutely.
And it's so cool now with all the movies coming out like Limitless and whatever that makes people think bigger than themselves. Like maybe this isn't it. Maybe there is so much more to what I can do, what I can think. And we all keep expanding our minds exponentially every year, which is fantastic. I think it's going to be a really fast science and really excited to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, and there's a very nice way to prove it for yourself if you're into gardening. So you can do it two ways. You can take some seeds, and then before you plant the seeds, for a couple of days, hold the seeds and visualize that this plant, let's say tomatoes, will grow out into these beautiful big tomatoes. And then because it needs to be researched, you will have seeds that you did not use your visualization power, and then plant them next to each other in two different pots and just see the difference. And also they've discovered playing certain type of music, but even with Reiki, just sending energy to plants, things are shifting as well. But the effects are on DNA level. That's what most people don't understand, is that we are really practicing epigenetics, and we can do it with plants. And everybody can do it. We've done these experiments. My daughter, she's now going to be 8 this year. She is incredibly, because her fantasy is unlimited. So when she does the tomato seeds, her tomatoes are much bigger, and which makes her proud. And, I'm so good. It's great for her self-esteem. But unconsciously, she's learning that her mind can influence, like you're saying, the real stuff around us. And then when we look at the bigger picture, the multiverse, we also are attracting coincidences, which we call synchronicity, that will help us to achieve our goals. So for example, if I want to live to 148, what will happen in the future is that science will continue to make new discoveries. One of the new discoveries are, for example, stem cells. So if we start playing now with stem cells, we can rejuvenate certain parts of our body. And for those people who don't know what stem cells are undifferentiated cells that can, I would say, activate and rejuvenate an organ. So, for example, you spoke about Alzheimer's. If we would be able to get stem cells into the brain, we can rejuvenate the brain and then reverse Alzheimer's. The same thing for, let's say, discs that are having wear and tear. So we can change things. So the more time we have to the future, the more tools we'll have even to grow older and then to be healthier and so on. So that's the power of epigenetics in this whole visualization thing as well.
Well, and you mentioned about living to 148. I know you want to live to 148, and that's what you're envisioning. So what are you going to do to get there? What are your steps?
No, first of all, wanting to live to 148 was a parallel time. I discovered that I was visiting a parallel time, and I wanted to see my last days on this planet. It was just for, so I got there, and my parallel self was 148, and he was still looking very good, still complete, good mind, strong body. And I asked him, why do you want to be 148? He said, well, the only reason is that then I lived through 3 centuries. That was the main reason.
Mm.
And I wanted to prove it's possible. And one of the things he said to me that already is changing my life, he said, one of the best things for your arteries is to drink, for example, every day 1 glass of red Merlot or Bordeaux. I don't like red wine at all.
That's great news for me. I love red wine.
There you go.
And I already do that. So,
But there's a trick to that. He said the trick to it is that when you drink the red wine, make it a ritual. So it's not just drink. We know that red wine is good for your arteries, and we also know that it is limit. It's not about drinking a bottle of red wine. Let's be very clear. He was speaking about 1, maximum 2 glasses, but he said 1 is enough as long as you do the ritual. So when you before you drink the wine, I have my water bottle here. So hold the wine and just put into the wine a blessing that it will help you to live a longer life. He said, this is the trick. He said, I take other stuff, I take some antioxidants, but since I'm doing this, and he showed me also a machine that now I have that can test all the organs in the body. It's a scan machine that works on certain frequencies. He said, I found out that, he called it the blessed wine ritual, that the blessed wine is more powerful than all the antioxidants, all the vitamins, everything else. So I'm drinking my red wine like medicine now. 1 glass.
Very much forward to blessing my glass of red wine tonight.
And also that moment is a moment of gratitude. So I normally do it in the evening. I don't start in the morning with my glass of red wine, but in the evening, and take the moment to be grateful for your life, and focus on the good things. And then with each sip, you're celebrating, let's say, 100th birthday. You're already celebrating and visualizing it. So it's a ritual that when you do that, it's very nice to do. And then now I drink with my wife. We do it, and sometimes when we don't red wine, we drink white wine. We don't care so much, but it's a ritual we introduced, and we call it the blessing of the day, and the moment to be grateful, and then to focus on our future, and so on. And yes, there are more things that we can do. The other important ingredient that I added to this was, and I don't know how familiar the people watching are with telomeres. So if you look at the DNA, the helix of the DNA, at the end of the helix there are buttons, just like on top of a shoelace. You have the part that's holding it together so it will not unravel. So you have the DNA the same thing. The thicker that top part is, it's called the telomeres, the longer you live. It's that simple. So you can predict the longevity of a person based on the telomeres. And they even nowadays have a simple to do test where with a cotton swab, you can swab up some of the inside of your cheek. You send it in, you can even get your biological age back based on the telomeres.
So what you're telling me that by the telomeres, they can tell how long you're supposed to live barring any accidents.
Right. They will tell you how old your body is biologically.
Okay.
So you have a chronological age. I'm 64, but my body is 45 chronologically, biologically.
45, so that
because of the telomeres. And that has to do, and this part I also added to my ritual of wine drinking or visualization, that one is for the telomeres to swell up and become bigger, and when we use one anchor in this way, this anchor becomes very, very powerful. And it's really when you do a ritual like this, you will start feeling also that your body is letting go of stress and tension. It just all becomes like a ritual where you're rebooting your body, you're giving it new impulses to regenerate, to detoxify, to even remove plaques from your arteries. And I've before and after, not pictures, but scans, that you can really see how my arteries over time have totally let go of all the plaques that were in there. And I had plaques on my right side here going to the brain, completely gone, without doing any kinds of crazy therapy, just drinking one glass of red wine, and that's it.
And
So
realizing, right?
yes, exactly. It's a combination.
Right.
Red wine itself is good, but when you combine it with the power of the mind, it becomes something totally different. And then also you can, anything else you want to add to that equation. Let's say if you have back pain, you can also, visualize that disappearing while you're drinking the wine. It's a very nice ritual that I've not seen anyone do except my parallel self. And now I'm trying to tell as many people as possible,
Well, you're going to see me start doing it starting tonight.
No, you have an excuse.
No, I can have an excuse for drinking my glass or two of red wine tonight.
So the red wine now becomes the anchor for healing, the anchor for vitality, the anchor for longevity, for living a long, happy life, the anchor for seeing your telomeres become thicker, the anchor for your DNA to switch off, I call it bad type of aging, switch on, a radiant, vital type of aging. And especially for those people who don't have the means to spend $200-300 on antioxidants every month, it's a big investment, I tell you. And over the years, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. You can do something like that. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive wine. It can be regularly priced.
You can visualize that it is the most expensive wine. It tastes wonderful. Right?
Like the most expensive wine.
Oh, this is so great. So, Dr. Martina, you are a medical doctor, and I know that in your practice, you've seen probably things that we can't even imagine, both on the good and bad side. But what would you say, especially as a holistic medical doctor, is the most important thing when it comes to longevity? Is it the visualization, or what have you seen that works the best in order to not only live longer, but live longer well?
Well, I would say one of the most important things we need to focus on, and that's my parallel self is big on that as well, is I call it stress management or emotional management. We tend in our times now, do, go, that kind of stuff. And then we have added this new device, this is the devil in disguise, the phone, the smartphone. We are constantly on the phone and so on and so on. So without knowing, our body is in a supercharged state, which we call the sympathetic autonomous nervous system is over reacting. In Chinese medicine, they call it the yang. You have yin and yang, and this is where we're really having even times. A lot of people have, let's say, difficulties falling asleep. We're watching our screen before we're going to bed, and our sleep quality has become less and less. So there are two things that I think, besides visualization, are very, very helpful. Is learn to deal with stress, and stress is all imaginary. It's all in our head. We're creating stress. If you take two people, put them in the same situation, give them more work than they can handle, one will be totally stressed, and the other one will just do the best they can do, and they say, this is what I can do now. And that's it. And we need to learn that attitude. We need to learn to let go. We need to learn to just decide we're not participating anymore in stupid conflicts, in emotional warfare. There are no winners, and especially also in relationships. We can be stressed by a relationship because there's some things our partners are doing we don't like or whatever, or in our jobs and all those kind of things. So stress management is a very, very important thing. And I also believe we should have a really plant-based nutrition with a lot of fibers, because the fibers specifically pull out toxins from our system. The more fiber-rich our food, the better for us to to cleanse our lymph system, which is very important for immune system, to keep our colon clean. Our biggest enemy is yeast, candida, and yeast is caused by two major things. One is refined carbs, and second is antibiotics. So when we, take antibiotics for a cold or stuff like that, and it kills also the good bacteria in our gut. So we really need to replace those with healthy bacteria, probiotics. So, for example, sugar is the killer. Sugar is one of the worst things we can do for aging. So we need to eliminate sugar and replace that with something natural or whatever it is, this plant-based stevia that you can do in tea, and it's wonderful. So stress management, a lot of plants. So with plants, I mean, of course, vegetables and all of that. Women should have 3 portions of broccoli every week because that protects especially the breast against cancer. So that's a really good thing. And also 3 portions of red beet every week because red beet stimulates the immune system and it's one of the perfect antioxidants also for our immune system, especially things that are purple or dark, like red beets, like blueberries, you have the blackberries. These colorants are protecting our immune system and our arteries. So these are just a couple of the general tips that I can give in a nutshell. And with stress, we need to, it's quite simple. You need to observe yourself when you're getting stressed. You know when you get stressed. And then make it a habit to catch yourself being stressed. And the way I've done it is with a timer. So every hour, my time will go off and I stop everything and I would breathe, calm myself down, look at the situation and see what's going on. Even if it's in a meeting, I would just, for a moment, go inside and check my body and see if I'm stressed, how I'm sitting, how are my shoulders, am I sitting again like this behind my computer, am I relaxed, am I smiling in my heart or not? And I kept readjusting myself on an hourly basis. Also with sitting, NASA has proven that if we sit too much, that will counteract exercise and shorten our lives. So having each hour a break, 5-minute break where you get up, walk around, breathe, and maybe drink some water and go back to what you're doing, that would totally change your stress levels. And that's one recommendation that I give. There's not even a parallel self. I started doing this many, many years ago, and it changed my outlook on life, and it made me very aware of my body and how I deal with stress, what triggers me or not. And now I'm, becoming the Zen master that I will be in the future. It was a good preparation.
That's awesome. So is there anything that you do that as a medical doctor you can't or won't give advice about to your patients, but that you actually do yourself?
You call the secret.
Exactly. I hear that all the time. I hear that from medical doctors, that I would never tell a patient this, but this is what I do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, one of the things that I don't recommend other people to do is I train physically very, very intense. My wife hates me when she joins my training. I believe that another predictor of longevity is what's called a heart rate variability. And the heart rate variability is the way your heart is beating if you measure over time. The more regular your heart is, the closer you are to death. This sounds a little bit strange. So if your heart is beating 60 times a minute, and it's exactly every second, you're probably in the last weeks or days of life.
Wow, really?
So because when we breathe and we breathe in and out, this pressure on the heart needs to constantly adapt. So the heart, when it is flexible and adaptive, one time it will be less than a second, one time it's over a second. To more variations, I'm not talking about irregular heartbeat. It is not about getting this crazy heartbeat. It's about when you look at the timing of the heartbeat, it should be variable. The more it's variable, the longer you live. So besides the telomeres, the heart rate variability is another sign, and it's a very scientific sign. It was discovered by the Russians, but medicine is not using it because the heart rate variability will show you that most pharmaceuticals are not good for you. So they disregard it completely. The most objective scientific tool, they don't use it. And what I discovered is that with high intensity training, you can change your heart rate variability in incredible ways. And I love training, and you can do this in 4 minutes. You don't have to do so. I recommend my patients to do 4 minutes intense training. It doesn't have to be straight. It could be 1 minute, 30 seconds break, another 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then 4 minutes, for example, running up a stairway as fast as you can, or doing fast squats, or the worst one's called burpees or things like that. So you do that for 4 minutes, that already will change your heart rate variability, number one. But if you do it longer, what happens then is you stimulate growth hormone. So if I do it for half an hour, the growth hormone is stimulated, and the growth hormone is rejuvenating. So it actually helps to rejuvenate your body. So my trainings are intense. I don't, if you never trained your life before, you don't start that way. So I recommend doing 4 minutes. I do at least half an hour daily. And it's like dying 10 times in half an hour. That's how bad it is. So when my wife trains with me, and she wants to train with me every day, but sometimes she finds she will do yoga or something else, because it gets you to the point where you really think you're dying, where your heartbeat is going so fast, and you go in an anaerobic state, and you're gasping for air. And what happens then is you recover, which in time becomes faster. So first I needed 1 minute, now it's 30 seconds, and then you do it again and again. And it is terrible. I mean, I love it, but I don't recommend.
It's a little bit like CrossFit, right? The high intensity interval training or whatnot, yeah.
So you need to really enjoy this kind of torture.
Right.
But 4 minutes is enough for most people.
Well, there have actually been a lot of studies about high interval or high intensity training when it comes to your actual memory, and your memory grows with it. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
can be one of the best exercises for sure, but of course work your way up to it, right?
Yeah, I think 4 minutes most people can do. They can enjoy, and it still have a good effect. You don't get the full growth hormone effect, but you do get a great effect. So that's for most people, that's enough. I would never recommend anyone, if they're not fanatic about exercising. I am doing exercise since I was 6 years old. So for me, especially in martial arts, going to the extreme is natural. It's something we've been conditioned to do over and over, but that I would not recommend to someone who doesn't have, a long period in time in training and competitive sports, those kind of things. I would just say do 4 minutes, and it could be sprinting. It could be just sprinting for 1 minute, catch your breath, sprint again, do this 4 times, and you're benefiting from that tremendously. And I use Russian gira, it's called. These are kettlebells. Are you familiar with kettlebells?
Yeah.
Yes, kettlebells is the quickest way to kill yourself if you do it the right way. So that's my preferred training tool.
I guess I'm not doing them right then.
Most people train too light. Most people train too light.
Yeah.
So once you've mastered the technique, you have to go to the maximum where you can only do 5 or 6 of that weight, and then you build it up. And then 5 or 6, you already feel terrible. Then you do 20, you feel like you're dying. But that's another story.
That's great. So Dr. Martina, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything, how can our guests get a hold of you after this? Is there a website they can find out more information about how to talk to you, or do you have a free gift or something that you're going to be giving?
Absolutely. We have Our website, my wife's name is Joy and I'm Roy, so that's easy to remember. Our website is called joyandroy.com, written fully, joyandroy.com. You'll find all the information there. My wife's a psychologist, and we're trying to define what kind of name would best go to her, so we're still playing with it. We've go from the witch coach to the psychic coach. We're still trying. She's really good in getting information from, I call it, these other dimensions, and she's doing that. And what we offer to people is we have a free community on Facebook called Crystalline Conversations, where people can get to meet us. And Crystalline is the name of our company, Crystalline, and you write it actually Christ all in. It's just happened to be like that, Crystalline. And if people like that, they can join our coaching community. And the coaching community is a group coaching where every 2 weeks we're doing sessions with people, and we're taking topics, and we're explaining certain things. And people are so happy with that because it's very affordable. We say for the price of 1 cup of coffee a day, you can join the Crystalline Coach community. And our goal is to really give back. So in the coaching community, we share the things that we do, how we do it. My wife often also show things, how she cooks, how she prepare meals, all this stuff. We're really, showing our lifestyle, and people love it, and we give advice. People can ask personal questions. So where I can react as a holistic doctor, she is as a life coach, and that way people can keep growing with us and move forward. And it's affordable, so it's not something that costs thousands of dollars and something like that.
Great. We will have all that information, all the links to his website and his coaching programs and the Facebook group on Dr. Martina's personal speakers page with our Live Long Well Summit. So thank you again so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I still have my $1 billion business plan to write. It's in there. It's right here.
I will help you.
I would love that. Thank you again for being here. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you.